Today's project is a mid-century telephone bench. It dates from the 1950s to the 1960s, and as you can see, at some point over the last 60 to 70 years, it's had a bit of a rough time. It looks as though the phone shelf was perhaps used as a pot plant stand and water has overflowed down onto the base. Although I do think my biggest obstacle is going to be this weave. It has a combo of broken, missing and incorrectly placed strings. What am I going to do with it? Well, only time will tell. This restoration is actually part of a YouTube challenge, and it's called YouTube's Biggest MCM Challenge. A bunch of talented and awesome channels have been working really hard on many different MCM pieces, and we've all launched our videos at the same time. You'll find that playlist in my description, but there's also a good chance that's how you found this video. Either way, please be sure to check them all out. It's certainly a binge-worthy MCM playlist, and we all really appreciate you tuning in. As I dismantle this telephone bench, I am realizing that it's really only held together by a few bolts, as the glue is no longer adhesive, so it's coming apart quite easily. But I'm very aware this will likely be the easiest part of this restoration, so I'm very careful not to be led into a false sense of security. You can see the weave has a lot of broken strings and there are a few stains that look quite permanent. There are also these random strings that appear to be threaded incorrectly. I'm no weave expert, and to be honest, I'm finding the thought of having to reweave this very, very daunting, but I can't imagine trying to repair it without making it look worse than it is. Now before I get scissors happy, I need to count the strings that make up the weave pattern so I can attempt to duplicate it. I also take a bunch of photos to refer back to because once it's gone, it is gone. I just take one last look to ensure I'm making the right choice in cutting it off, but the more I look, the more problems I find, so it's got to go. Wish me luck. It's now time to make a start on tackling this blue stain. There's obviously some liquid staining and the colours may be from a chemical reaction with the wood, I'm not too sure. It doesn't look like paint, but I can tell it goes very, very deep into the wood. I start with some stripper to remove any varnish that's left, but this stripper isn't going to cut it, so I go and buy some stripper which dissolves the varnish rather than stripping it. They recommend using steel wool to remove the varnish residue and then mineral spirits to clean it off. I can tell this is working better than the other one, so I wipe it off with some mineral spirits, and once it's dry I get to work with some oxalic acid. And again I let that dry, and then I wash it down with some water and put it aside until I get my hands on some bleach, because I'm going to try that as well. It's now dark out, my wife is on a work call, so I am keeping an eye on our sleeping son and taking advantage of some time in the workshop and eating soda twists, Haribo's finest in my opinion. Let's start stripping. I make a quick stop to get some household bleach onto this stain. I'm confident it's not going to get much lighter, but it's not going to make it any worse, so I'll give it a try. I also use it on this mark while I'm at it. Now I'm just using a combo of steel wool and a scraper to remove the stripper. It is really important to remove any leftover stripper with some mineral spirits before sanding, otherwise you'll annihilate your sandpaper very quickly. It's now a new day, which happens to be sanding day. Quite possibly the longest day of a furniture restorer's life. Fortunately, it will only take up 1 minute of yours. That was the longest minute of your life, wasn't it? I opt for a dark chocolate coloured stain. I think it'll be a great contrast with the seat weaving, and I think it'll also give it a sharp, sleek look. As predicted, the stain isn't shifting any further, so I'm just going to stain it now. I'll then use a bunch of furniture crayons to try and blend it in as much as I can before applying a semi-gloss poly spray. I give everything about 3 light coats. It dries very quickly, so I got it all done in about 1.5 hours. And now, what you have all been waiting for. It's now time to weave the seat. I ordered 2 hanks of number 2 seagrass from Amazon. This is a piece from the original weave. I'd say it's marginally thinner, so maybe it's a 1, but close enough. And this is called a rush shuttle. You load your grass onto it and use it to weave. I whipped this one up with my laser using some scrapboard that I had. And these are hog ring pliers. They are used to put your hog rings onto the seagrass when you need to join 2 pieces of grass together. A pair of gloves to protect your hands. These ones came with these pliers, so that was handy. This is a spacer, just has to be 1 inch across. This helps keep the gap for weaving as it gets quite tight as you go along. Oh, and more importantly, this bottle of wine. Today is my 4-year wedding anniversary and my wife agreed to a weaving date. So yes, I am very, very lucky. Alright, I think we are all set to go. Nope, one more thing. Now we are set. Here is my wife in her pajamas about to load up the rush shuttle with the seagrass. After doing this, we actually realised it won't work with this piece as one side has slats next to the bar and it won't fit through. So we just have to loop it through by hand. We use a piece of string to secure the start of the grass. Don't do this, get a clamp, I just didn't happen to have one. It's probably a good time to say this is not a professional tutorial, I'm just giving you some insights into what we did. We actually followed a great tutorial on YouTube, it was fantastic. I'll leave a link in the description. It's really good for a weave like this one. I make sure that I keep referring back to the photos I took of the original weave so we know how many loops for each section. It takes a bit to get used to, but eventually you do get a bit of a rhythm going. Now we ran out of seagrass and needed to connect some more. Here's a little demo on how I did that. You want to make sure that your join is underneath the seat, not on top. And once you've laid out your first two sections, which are different to each other, one goes the full span of the seat and the other just wraps around the rail. You just keep repeating that pattern until you reach the end of this side.
We started. We're going to attach the beginning tail to this is our first grouping of 4.
The next part is essentially the same, but you have to weave under and over and alternate between sections, going over first and under first. You flip the seat in between each string. That might sound confusing. Yes it is. But once you get your rhythm going, it does become a little bit easier. But only after you make a few mistakes. This is me undoing a 30-minute mistake. What you are seeing here is what we did for a further 2 hours before it was finished. It took a solid 4 hours with 2 people. Our wine glasses were still full at the end. We didn't eat dinner, and we may not have a 5th wedding anniversary. No, I'm only kidding. We did have a couple of swigs of wine. Here is our Chief Testing and Inspections Officer. Does it cut the mustard, Sonny? Woohoo, that looks like a yes. A massive thank you for watching. Please do check out all of the other videos in the YouTube's biggest MCM challenge. They are absolutely all worth a watch. If you would like to see more of this kind of content, please hit subscribe, it's free. If you liked this video, a like would go a long way as well. Now let's check out the finished piece. Let me know what you think in the comments, and until next time, take it easy.